Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Firstly, I want to thank you to my lecturer in research methodology of language or literature, Ma'am Rosma Tami. In this video, I will presenting my proposal to fulfill the final assignment entitled Child Acquisition Vocabulary Through Cartoon in Lempangan, Buah Village. So without any further ado, my name is Ridwan and this is my proposal presentation. Childhood age is often called golden age. These ages are really critical, which will determine the ability of children. Childhood is really identical with playing and watching videos. Both of these things cannot be separated from children. Almost all their daily activities are simplified by these two things. Munir states that cartoons or animation is a sequence of pictures arranged in a sequential order, or also known as frames, which is each frame containing one picture. Cartoons are quite popular among today's children. Today, cartoons can be watched not only on television but also on mobile device, making it easier for children to access and watch cartoons. Children are really enjoy to watching cartoons because of the colorful and the difference of the characters. They enjoy to imitating the language that they hear in cartoons animation, even if they may not always understand whether what the cartoon characters are saying is good or bad. As a result, they acquire various things from the cartoons or animation movies they watch, which unintentionally influence several aspects of children's development growth, such as cultural aspect, moral aspect, cognitive aspect, emotional aspect, and language aspect. Childhood period make children to be sensitive to various stimuli from their surrounding, so that children will be sensitive to receive various stimuli and educational efforts, including language acquisition. Darjo Wijojo stated that language acquisition is defined as a process of mastering language by children naturally, when children acquire their native language. Language acquisition is usually different from language learning. Nowadays, looking how excited children are to watch cartoons, parents can use this as a way to helping children and change their language acquisition. After watching the animation, children may tell their closest friend about it and may even imitate the character phrases and action in their daily interaction. This is undoubtedly beneficial to children's language acquisition, particularly for children who do not live in metropolis. As a result, the children will become accustomed to speak a language other than their native language or the language of the region. Based on the explanation above, the researcher is interested in conducting research on child acquisition vocabulary through cartoon in Lempangan, Desa Buah. The research question: based on the explanation on the background, the researcher formulates the problem of the research as what are the vocabulary acquisition in children after watching cartoons or animation movie, and what is the impact of content and language use on cartoons or animation movie to children language acquisition process. Based on the problem statement above, the objective of the research are describe vocabulary acquisition in children after watching cartoons or animation movie, describe the impact of the content and language use on cartoons or animation movie to children language acquisition process. Previous finding. The first one is Rezeki. In her journal, Children's Language Acquisition Due to the Influence of Animation Film. Researcher focused on how much vocabulary children gain after watching an animation film called Hana, Omar Hana. Researcher found that Omar Hana animation film had an impact on a language acquisition of children at the age of 3 years and 5 years old, as evidenced by the discovery of 30 words that they imitate from Omar Hana films and were often used in their daily short conversation. The second previous finding is from Nur Jamiati in her journal Perolehan Bahasa pada Anak Usia 3 tahun berdasarkan tontonan kesukaannya, ditinjau dari konstruksi semantik. Researchers focused on deeper language acquisition of children through linguistic skills, especially in semantic abilities. As a result, researchers found that it turned out that 3 years old children have been able to compose sentence and in speech, even though it's still a simple sentence or not perfect. Based on the previous 2 studies above, by using the same subject, researchers will try to describe the acquisition vocabulary in 3 till 6 years old children and identify the impact of the content and language used on cartoons or animation movie to children acquisition process in Lempangan, Desa Buah. Theoretical framework. There are 3 theoretical framework in this research. The first one is psycholinguistic. As language acquisition is usually included as part of psycholinguistic science. Psycholinguistic aims to understand the psychological processes that occurs when a person utters the sentence they hears when talking, as well how people acquire language abilities. Thus, the main objective of psycholinguistic is to develop a language theory that is both linguistically and psychologically appropriate for explaining the origins of language and its acquisition, as stated by Khair in his book. The second one is language acquisition. Darjo Wijojo states that language acquisition is a natural process of children language mastering that occurs when children learn their mother tongue. And according to Khair in his book, language acquisition is a process that occurs in a child's brain when they acquire their first language or mother tongue. When a child acquires a language, 3 stages are take place: competence development, performance development, and language creativity. The ability of children to communicate through a language is referred to as performance. It consists of 2 processes. The first one is understanding or the ability of observing or recognizing words of phrases here. And the second one is the process of producing language or words of one's own. Are the 2 processes that make up performance. The third framework is vocabulary. According to Herbie, vocabulary is a collection of words, which is each word has a specific meanings and is utilized to making up a language. Based on the definition above, it can be concluded that vocabulary is a list of words, a collection of words with its own meaning and that are used in the development of a language, and typically a source of richness of authors and speakers and uses to communicate with each other. Because of researchers intend to describe the acquisition of children's vocabulary after watching animation and a cartoon with accurate and in-depth depictions based on the facts collected in the field, this research will be conducted with a qualitative descriptive research design, which is there are 2 sources of the data of this research. The main source of data for this research is from a short interview with several children in Lempangan, Desa Buah. And the second source of the data is from observations of children when they interact with their friends. As mentioned above, there are 2 techniques of collecting data for this research. The first one is observation. The first one is observation. The researcher will observe vocabulary acquisition of children as they use the vocabulary in the background. And the second source of the data is from interview, short interview. The researcher will conduct a question and answer session with several children to fulfill the interview sheet. To analyze the data from the interview and observation sheet, the researcher will use Skinner's behaviorist theory, which is Skinner divided child's language acquisition into two types. The first one is imitation, in which the child acquires language by imitating the speech of others around them. And the second one is reinforcement, which aids children's language use and development. That's all my proposal presentation, and thank you so much, and bye.